my dream of geometry because it's just algebra today.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I hope that you're going to say. But it's graphing, it's writing equations using slope-intercept, point-slope form, which you're going to have to be able to do. So I didn't even write, I don't even have a magic button to push because I want you to just tell me that you know the answer to this. What is the slope-intercept form for a linear equation?
She said that's the only thing we needed to know how to do that.
And know how to factor and know this equation. Get you pretty far in math class. Where m is your slope and v is your y-intercept. Why do we like slope-intercept form of an equation?
Because it's easy.
Because it's really easy to graph, right? Like if you want to graph a line, slope-intercept form is all you need to know. Writing equations, I'm not going to lie, I'm more of a point-slope fan. And in algebra, I feel like you do more graphing than writing equations, so maybe you're on the mx plus b train. I'm going to be on the point-slope train, but I'll see if I can convince you why my train's better. So point-slope form, you need a point and you need a slope. So if m is your slope, and you have some point, x1, y1, does anybody remember this equation?
Is it
Y minus y1 equals m
times
x minus x1. So this equation you can put in slope-intercept form very easily. Like if you had a point and a slope, you can write it, and then you can just distribute your m and add your y1 over, and you'll get slope-intercept form every time. And if you're going to graph, definitely you want slope-intercept form. If the question just says write an equation and it doesn't tell you what form you have to do it in, you're going to see this is less work to do. And I'm okay either way, but you just got to know how to write an equation using one of those. Or if the directions say put it in this form, put it in this form, you need to maybe know both of those. Little side note here. What's the formula for slope again? Do you remember?
wait, is it x or y?
You tell me. What's on top on slope? Y, because it's rise over run.
y2 minus y1 and then x.
If I took this equation for slope and I multiplied the bottom over, am I allowed to do that? Do you see that we kind of get what point slope form? Do you see that? If I take this and I multiply it over, you would have m times x2 minus x1 equals y2 minus y1. You see that? That's kind of that. There's some people I've been to conferences with that say they don't teach either one of these forms of equation. To write an equation, they just always make their kids use slope. And you plug in the point, and you plug in the slope, and then you solve it. I'm not really a big fan of that, but it's kind of a neat way to see where this comes from. Like, that's just your y's over your x's as you multiply it over. So, anyway, that's just a side note. Don't stress too much about that.
Cool.
Sometimes I like to just give you extra knowledge, just in case you want to know it.
I try to keep it.
Wouldn't it be so nice if your graph on your paper looked as nice as my graph up here?
Yeah.
Correct it up here. If I ever win the lottery, I'm going to buy like the nicest copier that just uses tons of toner, just so we can make super nice color copies all the time.
Our graph has gaps.
Yeah, I'm drawing in the rest of the lines right now.
Just ignore those lines really and just make your own. Maybe the best answer. I try to be nice to give you a graph and then the copier is crappy thing. So it says write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line with a slope of 6 and a y-intercept of -3. Oh my gosh, couldn't get easier than this, right? Then graph the line.
Oh, dang.
What did you do?
What?
Why did you say dang it?
Because we have to graph.
Oh. If they give me a slope and a y-intercept, do you agree y equals mx plus b is probably my way to go? Because where am I going to put that 6? M. Where am I going to put that -3? Because it's the y-intercept, I know that I can just say 6x minus 3. That's like baby math for us at this point, right? Just kidding. If you don't understand it, don't be offended by that.
What?
It's hard sometimes. Mr. Gressick and I were talking. Mr. Gressick has a math degree, not a math education degree. So that means he never took like teaching classes. He never student taught. Like this is his first like teaching. So it's really hard. Sometimes after you do like the crazy math that you do in college, because you start at like higher than calculus when you go to college and get a math degree, and then you have to take a step back and teach kids how to graph y equals mx plus b. Sometimes it's hard. Like he was teaching imaginary numbers, which you guys haven't even learned about yet. And he's like, it's hard to remember that kids don't know what imaginary numbers are.
Wait, so what would he go to school for? What did he teach? What did he do?
Well, he was going to be a professor. So
Still
you,
gotta know how to teach it.
well, that's that's debatable.
Ah.
Professors are kind of crazy people, but he decided not to do that. But you could go get a math degree and be an actuary, which is someone that like figures insurance rates and makes lots of money, like starting out $60,000.
Don't they have a calculator site where you just type in the numbers?
Well, there's someone that makes a formula for that. Like actuaries are the people that figure up the formula that when you go on the line and type all the stuff in and it gives you a rate, like someone has to make that formula.
Did you just say when you go?
Well, if they already have it, then there's
Yo.
no need for that job.
So, you could just be a mathematician. So, I don't know.
It's like
There's a poster
sit
somewhere
at
that says
home in
jobs
the
you're gonna
dark,
need for a
writing
math
stuff on
degree.
the chalkboard.
All right, Chandler, how do I graph this? What do I do first?
So you would go ahead and plot y-intercept, which is -3. So you go -3 on the y.
Right, you always start with your y-intercept because that's a point on the graph, right?
Yeah.
And then what do? How do you graph your slope?
And then because it's a slope of 6, you go up 6, up 1.
Rise over run.
Over to the right.
Up 6,
Yeah.
rise a positive 1.
Yeah.
And you really only need 2 points on your graph. If 3 fit, I usually make 3, but this one doesn't fit, so I'm just going to leave it like that.
Didn't make.
What I usually say is check very quickly. This is a positive slope. Make sure this line looks like a positive slope because it's really easy to just graph the wrong way and then you're mad at yourself for messing up your slope. Positive line going up, positive slope looks great. Oh my
I
gosh.
don't want to climb that.
Oh look, apparently I have a multiple choice here.
Because they think.
Don't say the answer. Just look at it. It says write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line with a slope of -1 and a y-intercept of 4. I should have to give you like 10 seconds here, and you should be able to.
That's not on.
It's not.
I know it's not on there. It's a check for understanding, right? Which means probably I made a go forward and prove this that we aren't using, but that's okay. But it's been a fall break and I forgot. So do A, B, C, D.
Yeah, got it. Wait.
A,
Let's
B,
just
C,
look.
D.
Oh, cool.
A, B. Wait until I want the answer. Yes?
Well, you told us to do it.
Y-intercept for negative. I mean y-intercept for slope of -1. Okay.
Any video cameras on at all times? Like,
A cat came up with it.
It is true. There was a cat sitting by my window.
It was a cute cat. It had like white feet.
And then everybody stared at it, and it was like the cat knew we were talking about it, and it looked at us and ran away.
Wait, did it have black on it?
It did.
that's awesome.
Is that your cat?
Does it look like it has babies? It has white feet. Is it like?
Is it? And you mean like it's pregnant?
Is it like go to the glass and just like scratch on the glass?
It did scratch on the glass.
Are you just that kid
No,
or?
she does like 10. My cat doesn't. My cat.
Quite slope
I have a
form.
black cat. The one that's called
I
White.
have 3 of them.
You need to know point slope form. All right? Because it says write an equation in point slope form of the line whose slope is -3/5 and contains the point -10/8. It's called point slope form because you just need a point and a slope, and you plug it in. Right? Where am I going to plug -10 in?
That is going to be
X1? 8 is Y1? This is my slope. So if I was just going to write the equation, I don't have to do any extra work, but know where to plug the numbers in. So Y minus 8 equals -3/5 times X minus -10 would make plus 10. Yes? Here's the issue with this. Can you graph in point slope form?
Totally.
Yeah, so if it says graph the line, do you agree that this was pretty easy to write this equation? But if you need to graph it, then you need to do the math, do the algebra to get y by itself so that you can graph y equals mx plus b. If it just said write the equation, you can leave it like that. Okay? So, let's talk about our fractions for a minute. What would negative 3/5 times 10 be? 6. Because you can take 5 goes into 10 two times, so you're just left with negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6. Okay, you can use a calculator, but just like to remind you that you can do without a calculator. Next year when you're in 10th grade, you have to take this new test called I-Step 10. And one part's going to be without a calculator, so I just like to remind you that.
You hear I-Step 10 all the time, and every time I hear it, I get more afraid and more afraid and more afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Add 8, and I would get y equals negative 3/5 x plus 2. Which is much easier to graph. So that's why in Algebra 1 you remember mx plus b more than you remember point slope, because this is what we need to graph. So be careful though, right? This graph goes by 2's. So that's easy. But how can I graph a slope of negative 3/5 when my graph goes by 2's?
It's really not easy.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult.
Yeah, so two options. One option would be if you go down 3, that would be down 2, and then down 3 would be like halfway in between there. And then over 5 would be 4, 5 would be like right here, right?
Got it.
Another option would be make them even numbers. Could I go down 6 and over 10? Would that be the same as going down 3 and over 5? Whoa. So you could go down 2, 4, 6, over 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And notice it's the same
I
slope.
wanted it to be in a different place, like so that.
Also remember little things about slope. You can switch the negatives. So you could go up 3 and back a negative 5, right? Only go negative once though. Again, very easy thing to check. Does that slope have a negative? Does that line have a negative slope? Yep. Yes, it's coming down. Perfect.
You know how I figure out if a line has negative or positive slope?
How's that?
I look at the slope, the number that's next to x.
I know, but you don't know how many times that it has a negative slope, and for some reason people go down 3 and back 5, and then they just graph a positive slope, right?
Well, they're just.
Oh, look, this one's not on your paper either, okay?
Okay. I don't know.
Oh.
Really quick here.
Okay.
Point slope form, slope is 1/3, contains 6, negative 3. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Boom. Got it.
Hold your fingers up.
All the same amount of numbers as everybody else.
I know, I see a few ones here. Remember that the formula for point slope is y minus y1, x minus x1. So the signs are going to be different, right? So it has to be this one, right? Because it's x minus x. So that would be x minus 6, y minus negative 3 would be plus 3. Yes?
Which one? Okay, again, in the 2 points that are given.
It's
What?
me.
No, I know it's C. But which one is X and which one's Y? How do you know which one to plug into which? 'Cause you have-
Ordered pair. Ordered pair. What always comes first? X,
So
y. Always. Okay? Okay. One more thing before we get into the hairball stuff. What if they just gave you 2 points? Can you write an equation if they just give you 2 points?
yeah.
You gotta find the slope and use one of the points, right? This is where you have a choice. This is where you can use y equals mx plus b. You can use point slope form, and you can decide which way you want to do it. It just says write an equation in slope intercept form, but still, I'm going to use point slope form. But step 1, find your slope correctly. Maybe it was more in 5th hour than this class, but a lot of people on the quiz mix their slope up, like y's and x's, right? Rise over run. You have to remember your y's are on top. So I'm going to say 9 minus 0, 4 minus negative 2 is 9 over 6, or 3 halves. We want slope as a fraction, so don't write it as a decimal. Leave it as a fraction, right? It's easier than saying 1.5 over 1. then we can use either one of these points. This is where everyone's work could look a little different depending on which equation you start with and whether you use 4, 9 or negative 2, 0. It's your choice. I'm going to do this one both ways just to show you. If you do this, which is probably what your go-to is, right? You feel comfortable with y equals mx plus b. It's your friend. 3/2 is my slope. Which point do we want to use? 4, 9, negative 2, 0. Because you're all scared of this, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to take the one with the 0 in it, but that's okay. So it doesn't matter which one you use, but that's your x, that's your y, or this is your x, this is your y. You should get the same y-intercept no matter which point you use. Plug it in. So 9 equals 3/2 times 4 plus b. And then you just have to do the algebra to solve that for b. 2 goes into 4 2 times. So 3/2 times 4 is 6. Subtract 6, and I get b equals.
Yeah.
Yes? The reason I'm not a big slope-intercept form fan is we just did a lot of work, but we're not done. Right? You have to write the equation, which means you have to go back and you have to plug in your slope and plug in your y-intercept. But that is your answer. Woo. If you did it this way, and again, I just like to remind you of options that you have. I could plug in either one of those points. Do you want me to stick with the 4, 9? I'll stick with the 4, 9. I would say y minus 9 equals 3/2 times x minus 4. And I think it's about the same amount of work. You just have to distribute. You still get minus 6 here now. Then I add 9. And do I get the same answer? I get the same answer. I don't care really. I just like to show you that both ways work. I like this way more. One, because I teach calculus and I use this more in calculus, so it's made me become more of a fan of point slope form. But also I like this because when I taught algebra, you don't know how many times people would get to this, b equals 3, they got an answer and they would move on. And they would forget that the question said write the equation. So I also like this because you get an equation from the beginning, right? Like you don't think you're done until you actually get the equation. So that's another reason that I'm a fan of this, but I'm okay with that too. Something else you could have done. Could you have just graphed those 2 points and then used the slope to figure out where it crossed? To get the y-intercept? That would have worked too, unless the y-intercept was a decimal or a fraction. That might have been hard to tell. But definitely graphing is an option as well. Okay. Goodness, I have a lot of these. Let's get this. Isn't this what we just did?
Weird. That's 0.
Oh, that's why this was on here. Good idea. Why is it weird, Garrett?
Well, try to do little things to get 0.
Do you get 0 on the top or 0 on the bottom? Because your y is negative 2 minus negative 2 over 0 minus 5, you get 0 over negative 5. And what is 0 divided by a number?
0.
So what happens? You want to do y equals mx plus b, or you want to do the
Yeah.
slope? Which point you want to use?
5, negative 2, because you hate it when people don't fix the 0 one. Dang it.
That's what I chose.
If I plug in negative 2 for y, and my slope is 0, and my x is 0, do I get that b equals negative 2? Is that true? Is 0, negative 2 going to be the y-intercept? Isn't that on the y-axis, 0, negative 2? Oh yeah, that makes sense. How do I write an equation with a slope of 0 and a y-intercept of negative 2? Do I write this?
Wouldn't you just do negative 2 and then you just wouldn't you add 2 to them? So subtracting it because it's already negative.
But I'm solving for b here, right?
No, but you have to subtract between them.
But I'm not, no, because I'm getting b by itself. 0, negative 2 equals 0 plus b. I'm trying to solve for b, right? So I don't want to move the two over. I'm trying to get what B equals.
I feel like this is being made a lot more complicated than it has to
Do you remember Miss Vi stressing about vertical lines and horizontal lines and recognizing them? It's kind of a big deal. It's supposed to be, like, I always think it's easy, but it's not easy because it's weird, right? If it has a slope of 0 or an undefined slope, it throws people off because it doesn't fit the normal pattern. If you have a horizontal line, right? So it goes right here. If you have a horizontal line, that means it has a slope of 0. It means there's no x in that problem, right? Because it's 0x. It's just through that y-intercept. So the line y equals -3 would have a y-intercept of -3. You don't rise any, right? A slope of 0, which means you just go straight across.
be.
What if you had a vertical line? What kind of slope does a vertical line have? Undefined, right? Which means like you can't write an undefined slope, which means you cannot write a vertical line in slope-intercept form. An equation of a vertical line is x equals a number. There's no y in the problem because it has an undefined slope, right? So it doesn't fit the normal pattern. So x equals -2 means go to where x is -2 and you draw a vertical line. Okay?
Got it.
Got it. Let's do a story problem. Story problem is the way to go. An apartment complex charges $525 per month, plus a $750 annual maintenance fee. Goodness gracious. Write an equation to represent the total first year's cost, A, for R months of rent. This is like PCA stuff right here.
Would it be?
Oh my gosh, it went straight to nature.
Would
Okay.
it be y equals 525x plus 750?
No, because you're supposed to use A
So just do that. But
So what would
that's it.
so what would your what is the Y representing? Is Y our cost or is Y our months of rent? It's the cost, right? So instead of saying Y equals, we could say A equals, and X is like what's happening, which is normally the independent variable or the months of rent. And so say that again there, Garrett. What was your equation?
Well, it was y equals 525x plus 7. Now it's a equals 525r, right?
You can't
Plus.
change your mind. You're too far into this.
And you recognize right away that was a linear equation because you have like your y-intercept, $750. You have to just pay that once, right? So even if you move out before the first month's over, you had to pay that. And then every month, right, your rate of change, every month you're adding 525 to that. And so that's a linear equation. That's exactly right for part A. Part B says, oh my goodness, compare this rental cost to a complex which charges a $200 annual maintenance fee, but $600 per month for rent. So can someone give me the equation for B, Audrey?
A equals 600r plus 200.
Yeah, so now it's 600 per month, right? So the per month kind of gives you the hint that that's the slope, and then this one only has 200. It says if a person expects to stay in an apartment for 1 year, which complex offers the better rate? What are some options here how we could solve this problem? Plug in 12 for R and see how much the total cost is. That's definitely one way to do it. Anybody think of another way you could do this problem? That's my way. I go straight to the algebra every time. Could you graph it and see what's happening too over a year? You could graph it. You gotta need some big numbers, but that would be another option to go there. So I think I like your option though. What if we plug in 12 there for R? Because that would be the first year. Anybody have a calculator?
You do.
What is it? 60 then add 750 is 7,050.
Yeah, so this one is $7,050 when R is 12. Oh, and this one is 7,400. So, reason of why maybe someone would choose to live in the second one, even knowing the first one?
In the sheet, it could be very crappy.
It could be crappy. That's definitely a reason. Anybody think of another reason that maybe you would stay? You would choose the one that you even have to pay more?
At first, you might not have enough money in $200.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Maybe
A lot of people don't have $750 extra to put down as that deposit or whatever they're calling it, maintenance fee. Most apartments call it a deposit these days. Whereas this one only has a $200 one that if you don't have the extra $750 deposit, you might pay more every month.
Maybe the maintenance fee sucks for the second one though.
Maybe the one that costs more actually has plumbing.
So I think it's sometimes interesting in math, like we can figure the math out of which one, right? This one is definitely you pay less over a year. But sometimes it's fun to think about, which one would you choose, right? And some people might choose to pay more overall because they didn't have the 750 or because it's crappier, right? Those are good answers. So not really math answers, but I think good answers.
Real life.
No.
I think that's easy.
Okay, so this is homework 3-4. This next section tomorrow is called proving lines parallel. So just know we're gonna do the proofs tomorrow. 18, 21, 27. Alright, I think only the first couple are graphing, so I can give you graph paper you want, but you're welcome to just draw on your notebook paper too. So you have like 15 minutes, so not really. 12 minutes.